So, this isn't my personal story, it's my stepdad's, but he's given the okay to share this incident that happened to him. He has a handful of interesting and frightening stories he's shared over the years with me, so if you'd like I may share more of them. Anyway, when my stepdad was growing up, his dad was in the Air Force very briefly. When my stepdad was around 3 to 5, they were deployed to Thailand and they lived off the base. His dad worked during the night, and his mom stayed home. My stepdad wasn't much of a sleeper at that age, still isn't, and he usually stayed up until the late hours of the night with his mom. So one night, at around 3 a.m., my stepdad is playing in the living room with some yarn and his mom decided to take a shower. In the living room, there's a sliding glass door that has no blinds and leads to their backyard, which was not fenced in. There was also a pathway that wrapped around the neighborhood and cut through the backyards. So my stepdad is sitting on the carpet, playing with the yarn when something outside caught his eye. There weren't a whole lot of lampposts behind his house where the pathway was, but their porch light was on and that shed light onto part of the pathway. And standing on the lit pathway was a clown, holding a balloon. Now, my stepdad knew something wasn't right, because what kind of a person decides to dress up as a clown in the middle of the night and stand on a pathway? So he starts to yell for his mom. Well, when the clown notices this he starts bolting towards the sliding glass door, and my stepdad freaks out, rightfully so, and starts screaming, running down the hallway to the bathroom, where his mom was coming from. He tells his mom what happened, but when they went back to investigate, the clown was gone. They called the police, but they couldn't really do anything since the clown was on public property and they didn't really think a 3-year-old could be a reliable witness. The clown never came around again, but my stepdad stopped staying up late, so he's not sure if the clown came back or not. He's not sure what the clown's intentions were, but to this day, he is terrified of clowns. Interestingly, when I was growing up and my stepdad told me this story, he would tell me that was his job now. He used to work the night shift at a gas station, but he liked to tell me he dressed up as a clown like the guy on the path and scare little children who weren't sleeping when they should be. I guess he found the humor in the horror. My name is Abby, and I live in a small city in California. Years back when I was 9, I lived in an apartment in the city of Covina with my mother, 2 younger siblings, and my mother's boyfriend at the time and father of my younger siblings. Now, my mother's boyfriend worked at a hospital, so he was gone for hours a day, while my mother worked as a janitor at a hotel. She too was gone for hours, leaving my siblings and I home alone with only the neighbors to check in on us once a day. For the first few weeks or so things were fine and I would go about my day playing with my siblings. Then the feeling of being watched started. I once saw in a post that our brains have this primal gaze detection that determines whether or not we are being watched, thus giving us that feeling, and I felt that everywhere around the house. That was just the beginning, and it wasn't long after when I started to see the shadows. At first they were quick and only lasted a few seconds. One day I wanted to grab some chips off of the kitchen table, so I climbed on a chair and reached over, but the feeling of being watched stopped me, so I slowly turned my head to the left and saw a tall black mass whip around the corner and toward the living room. I remember being so scared that I grabbed a handful of Cheetos and ran outside where my siblings would be. This kept happening for weeks. I would get the feeling, I would turn around and would see a black mass run the other way, like it was playing with me or something. Now this is something that I have been arguing with myself for years, arguing on whether this next part was real or just a dream. I remember hating being in my room, so I asked my mother if I could move my mattress into their room and sleep on the floor. She agreed. She set my mattress on the side of her bed that faced the door leading to the living room. The room was dark and the only light I had came from the living room where everyone else was. I remember laying down and then suddenly felt like I could not move. That was when I saw it. It was small and it slowly arose from the floor and over me. It didn't have any facial features, just a pitch black outline, the outline of a clown. It had a big round head and those spiky neck pieces with the bells at the end. It even made the cling, cling, cling noise as it hovered. I closed my eyes and screamed, and my mother came rushing in and flicked on the light. The moment she did I opened my eyes and it was gone. It just vanished without a noise. Seeing the irritated look on my mother's face, I didn't say anything, Just said I got scared of something and then I went to sleep. I was later told by relatives that my mother collected clowns as a teen, and that my aunts would experience weird things like them moving and such, but I never saw a clown until then. I remember another time I was sitting in my room with my brother. We were on my bed next to the window playing with toys when we heard a deep voice ask, "What are you doing?" My brother and I jumped and looked at the window where we saw the outline of a man wearing a cowboy hat. We screamed and ran out of the room. It was dark outside and the light from outside and inside made it easy to see out of the screen. Thinking about it then, it could have just been a random creep wanting to scare two kids, but recently I read a story where someone too saw a man with a cowboy hat, so maybe it was paranormal and not just some creep. There was even another time where I heard the exact same question when I was getting my sister ready for a bath, right in my ear. Of course, like most parents do, they deny there's anything bad in the house, but I know my mother saw things too. My sister even told me that when I was away at school, a person came to the apartment and blessed it. My parents also began to fight. The fights would get so bad that it would result in my mother throwing dishes and me having to take my siblings to the nearby park or to a neighbor's. Eventually their relationship came to an end and my mother slept in my room for the remaining week we had left of living there, and I remember my mother holding me in my room as her boyfriend tried to repeatedly bang on our door, saying things like, "Please babe, let me in. Don't leave me out here by myself. Please, there's something in that room, please let me in." I truly believe that something evil and negative resides in that small apartment. Oftentimes I even have nightmares, and when I do, they almost always occur in that apartment. I would see shadows along the walls, a giant slimy squirmy pea pod filled with baby heads on the bathroom floor. I am 18 years old, and to this day I still have those dreams. So remember those clown incidents during 2016? Where clowns would go around scaring people all over the US. Well, me and my group of friends were some of those people. I'm the first to admit we are scumbags. However, I learned from this experience I am far from a monster. I had many weird things happen to me while clowning, as we called it. One of those things was meeting this guy we referred to as Shaco, named after the League of Legends character. So a bit of context. I live in Texas with this same group of friends. We spent that whole month traveling around most of the state, going various smaller areas to spook people while avoiding police attention. During one of this runs and we meet Shaco at Marble Falls. Shaco was dressed more as jester than a clown. Hat with bells on the side, really colorful, and puffy outfit. With a masquerade mask over his face which was painted gold in color. During our clowning runs, we actually meet other clowns before. So, we went to talk to him. 'Cause even if we were all dressed as clowns, we are all still human beings, couldn't hurt maybe make a friend during this little prank. Or so we guessed. Shaco was hiding close by in spot near the lakes. I couldn't see his eyes, yet I noticed him staring at a few people playing by the water. Judging by where his head was pointed towards, I assumed it was a small get-together. We talked to him and everything was semi-normal for the situation. He didn't act normal though. The lot of us figured he was just hardcore into acting. Trust me, one of the other clowns we meet before did the same thing. The guy acted like a madman straight from a horror novel, which didn't mess with me at all. I thought he would be fun to tag along with. So when he started asking us to follow him, no one refused. It was a large group of us, with one single guy leading them towards lake. So nothing would happen to any of us at least. Going down this pathway, we spotted two guys that seemed to be a couple judging by how they held hands and how close to each other. They were talking loudly, which is probably why I didn't notice us coming till Shaco made his first move. This guy reached up into his hat and pulled out a knife. I kid you not, this guy pulled out a knife like it was nothing. I wasn't expecting it. Most of other clowns I meet didn't try to hurt people. They just scared people at most, just like us. Yet seeing this guy with knife caused me to hesitate. I looked at my mates who were all freaking out silently. Like I said, we are not saints, but like hell did we want to hurt anyone during this little prank. The two guys kept going, not noticing Shaco charging them till it was too late. both of them naturally started to scream. Despite this obviously being terrifying, I and my buds decided to cut them off and surround them. I guess, due being assholes and not believing someone would actually get hurt, we felt the need to continue the horror. Now our group of friends are literally a dozen guys and 2 girls. Adding Shako made it 15 versus 2. There was no way they would get away once we got them in a circle. Once trapped by all of us, Shako came and then started screaming at the top of his lungs while saying weird things to one of the guys in particular. "Darling, did you miss me? My sweet ego waffle, did you miss my morning light? I missed you, my dusk. I want you back." He kept going on and on after this. My friends all had mixed feelings about this situation. Some of them were laughing, enjoying how afraid these 2 dudes were. The rest of us, well, bad vibes hit us hard. What changed this whole situation into "this shit was 100% real" was when Shako went close to the guy. A blonde male I'll call Jeff. Be mine king, and I'll be your fool. Or, I'll make you disappear. In your little knight in shining armor." Shako then put the knife close to the Jeff's face. The second guy, a redhead I'll call Max, stood there balling up his fist, tears streaming from his eyes watching the mad jester getting so close to his boyfriend. Well, we may be assholes. None of us, however, were heartless. The 2 largest guys of my group basically grabbed Shako from behind. Both of them are about 6'2". Shako tried to fight them off, but one of my female friends and I grabbed his feet. The couple stood there stunned seeing us turn on Shako when my mate Drew told them, in his thick Australian accent, "Listen, we came here only for thrills, not to kill anyone, dudes. Just get the fuck out of here. Run away and call the cops." The moment those words left my bud Drew's mouth, they booked it back to whatever camp they had just left, leaving us with the now screaming Shako cursing us and threatening to slit all our throats. None of us were afraid, however. Again, it was 14 of us versus him. So we tossed that madman into the lake and ran off. We got into our cars and drove away from that spot. We didn't know what happened to Shako or the 2 guys until recently. You see, what made me write this story was that me and my friends all went to the hookah bar near my house this weekend. Drew was telling us some story about how he lost his favorite baseball when some guy with red hair came and said, "Hey, did guys go to Lake Marble during Halloween? I mean, like during the clown bullshit?" Apparently through fate, we ran into Max. He and Jeff were in fact a gay couple who had been stalked by Jeff's ex-boyfriend, aka, you guessed it, Shako. Shako was basically a stalker that had been stalking them for months even before the Halloween stunt. In fact, the stunt didn't stop the creeping at all. Shako just kept stalking them both no matter what. For 2+ years, he tracked them all across the state till eventually, due to stress, Max broke up with Jeff. Max couldn't take a crazy guy like that, always watching them from the shadows every single day. So he bailed, leaving Jeff alone with no one to help besides his sister. What made this story terrifying to me was the sad ending. Max found out some point in August, both Jeff and his sister committed suicide together. Without Max to help through the hard times, Jeff and his sister couldn't take Shako's madness much longer and ended their lives by hanging themselves. Max broke down crying by this point in the story. He is now trying to leave Texas by saving money, due a mixture of guilty and fear. The reason for this fear is because he got a Facebook message from unknown account telling him, "I'll make you pay. I'll make you pay for leaving my Jeff alone. I'll make you pay." So now Max is just praying that Shako doesn't find him before he leaves the state. I ended up buying him 3 shots that night and getting him an Uber home. I admit I'm not a good person, but I'm not pure evil. Not like him, not like that bastard. So to whoever reads this, believe it or not, stay safe please. Monsters lurk among us. And to you, Shako, if me and my crew, make no mistake, we aren't against beating up monsters like you. Especially after the pain put poor Jeff through till his final moments.